As the prophet of esports, I rely on trustworthy and meaningful data every day. Data from our research partner, YouGov, offers the most complete view of esports fans and gamers in the world, providing context to who they are, what they think, the brands they buy, and things they do. YouGov's connected insights and research services inform strategy at every level. If you're a team, a brand, agency, or rights holder, you should be talking with YouGov. Their partners measure and maximize ROI and are telling compelling stories with data. Visit yougov.com/gaming-esports to learn more. We've got some Amazon news. Amazon, the headline here from GamesBeat, Amazon shifts Lumberyard to open source 3D game engine supported by 20 companies. So for those of you who don't know, Lumberyard is Amazon's game engine. They're making it open source, so they're going to be offering it basically free to everyone, both to develop and to use. And there are a lot of companies signed on basically to contribute to this open source project. In other words, to help make the game engine better and more complete. Amazon, obviously, Adobe, Huawei, Niantic, Red Hat, among others. And so I'm curious where you guys think, what kind of effect you guys think this may have on what has been up until now a very much a two-horse race between Unity and Unreal from Epic.
Depends on how good and accessible it is, right? Like how well optimized the engine is, because Unity and Epic have the power that they can run on like potatoes, and that gives them universal accessibility almost. I think that is going to be the key thing that I'm looking for here. But looking at the history of Amazon Studios products, I don't feel confident about that. That's my initial look at it.
Keep in mind, guys, this engine, just to give you a little more color here, was not like this was Amazon's creation, but it was originally licensed. Like the underpinning is the Crytek engine or CryEngine.
Whoa, I didn't know that.
And so like there are seriously solid underpinnings to this game engine. This is nothing to sneeze at. It's not.
That changes a lot.
My thought is that, I don't think game engines are that expensive. Like these third-party game engines, I don't think are a massive part of the cost of building a AAA game. Like if you think about it, what does it cost to have a Unity seat license? Like I think it's, per seat, like $100. We're not talking about a massive, you're paying a developer $150,000 a year. You're paying $100 for the creative license or the seat license. Like, I think there is a bigger network effect than we realize. Like, if you're a developer that has always used Unity or always used Unreal, it's really hard to switch to Lumberyard, right? Like, it's a completely different system. I think that you, as a company, you wouldn't switch just to save a little bit of money or because something was free. And if you're a new studio, so that means you're probably going to get, with a free product, you're probably looking to get newer studios where cost maybe matters more. But those people need to recruit talent, right? So if you're starting a new studio from scratch and you need to hire people, it's going to be really hard to find people who are confident with using Lumberyard. So why wouldn't you just use Unreal or Unity? Because everyone already knows how to use those. So I think there's an element of that where people, it's as if a company wanted to hire you and they're like, we don't use Microsoft Excel, we use XYZ product. I don't even know what would be a competitor to Excel, but something that like nobody knew how to use. You'd be like, well, I'm probably not a good fit or a good candidate.
We use an abacus.
Right.
Like you'd be like, well,
you can't use a computer when you work here. You have to use your phone calculator to do all financial calculations. You'd be like, well,
I need you to draw me a financial projection.
It's a good point, Jeff. Keep in mind, though, that I think this is why they're making it open source, right? That not only can people use it freely, but also contribute to it freely, right? Whereas Unity and Unreal are very much walled gardens. They're closed ecosystem. They're closed products, right? Like if you're a big developer like Niantic, right? And Unity doesn't serve your purpose for whatever reason, it has things that you're constantly working around and having to develop around as opposed to fitting what you're trying to make, right? I can understand why they'd get on board with a Lumberyard that's open source, where they can have an impact on the engine itself, right? They're not just a customer.
And so that's kind of my question, because there is some big backers here. So do you all think that if this gets kind of used enough or adopted enough by maybe not the most major AAA studios, but enough? I mean, Niantic's like nothing to turn your nose up at. Like they have a very successful game. So I wonder if that will drive the price of Unity and Unreal down to eventually being, they might not give up, like they might not make it, open source, but they certainly might be able to drive the price down or eventually give a free product. Is that something that you all think could happen with a third free open source competitor? Do you think the other two will eventually have to drop prices if there's enough pickup?
They will have to compete, I think, in different ways, right? And I think there's a very obvious analogy here, which is operating systems. And if you look at the server market, right, where people spend hundreds of millions, billions of dollars sometimes to outfit data centers, right? The cost of Windows licenses to run on servers is minuscule compared to the cost of the huge hardware expenditure, to Jeff's point, right? But there's a reason people use Linux. There's a reason they put open source software there, because usually they're also involved in the actual development of that open source software. So they're a user and they're a contributor, and there are benefits to that. Yeah. And I don't think Unity or Unreal will ever be able to compete with that. And so they have to take a different path. Like it has to be maybe simpler to use, or
like the benefits of the walled garden.
That's it.
Yeah, well, it's the hair club for men model is what you're describing, right? Like, for lack of a better word, right? You know what I'm saying about? Like, I'm not just a customer. I'm not just an owner.
No idea, to be honest.
That was the one where they had like the fancy Madison Avenue. Like, is that what you're talking about, William?
Yeah.
Like, New York the super fancy offices. Yep. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, somebody got that reference.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate?
I don't remember where I read that.
What
was it?
No, we're not gonna go there. But it's
a long aside.
Yeah, it's a long aside. But I think it sort of reflects what's happening here. Yeah, I mean, to me, this smacks of the fact that I don't think they could get traction with this, because to your point, no one's gonna like. They probably went and they said it's $100 a seat, and they're like, thanks, but all our programmers already know how to use something that's $100 a seat, and they're like, and what are you going to do at that point? Because you're right, at that point, price isn't really something you compete on. They could come in and say it's $85 a seat, and you could say $15 not worth it. And then you look at Amazon and the billions of dollars they make, and you can look at charging $15 for this, which might make it compelling. Just why not make it free at that point? So it is interesting. I also wonder how much this connects to AWS. Like, I wonder so much of this, anytime Amazon does anything with a product, I always wonder, is this just to promote AWS? And I wouldn't be surprised if the one core feature of Lumberyard is deep AWS integration that basically drives all this stuff back to AWS at the end of the day.
And then you think about Twitch integration, right? Like, what are there going to be in browser games based on this engine or some, like, I don't know, right? Like, I don't know how that works, but you do have to think about those things for sure.
And this is mentioned in the article, but also when you have something that's open source, you can adapt it to many different environments that may be a closed, like Unreal or Unity runs on phones, PC, and console, right? Like, but could you take Lumberyard and adapt it maybe better for vehicle, for example, gaming, right? Like in-car gaming, and it's much more customized for that, or customizable, because of the fact that it's open source. And so
this is the whole thing about, we were saying earlier that the publisher proprietary engines are going kind of by the wayside because it just wasn't worth maintaining your own. But the whole reason why publisher proprietary engines started is because, for this particular game we want to make, we really wish lighting was handled differently. This is a black and white game, we want to do lighting differently. Or like, this is a, highly context dependent game. So we really wish, like you could support any character set, not just, like English language.
Right, if you have a highly specific thing, then it makes sense. But otherwise...
My hot take on this, guys, is this will be Amazon's most successful gaming product for the next 10 years. Wow. I think this is going to cause a lot of headaches for Unity and Unreal. And I think if I'm a shareholder, especially at Unity, where I don't have Fortnite, I am especially worried today, because I think anytime you have open source solid technology, huge backers, obvious connections into things like AWS, obvious support from existing developers. Like, to me, this is I'd be very surprised if Amazon messes this up. Julian says anything can connect to AWS. And Julian, I mean, in this particular case, I think I mentioned it. Amazon Web Services is actually one of the 20 founding members of this project. So they're intimately involved. And you could see how, for a game developer, that might be a huge benefit. Wade says, I got the Old School Hair Club for Men reference, William. Obviously, I wasn't a customer. Wait. Good sense of humor, Wade. I like that. Julian says, first day of car gaming equals my last day alive. Julian, not if the cars are driving themselves, right? If
future,
then we should be okay.